When I moved into what I thought was a quiet, safe suburban neighborhood, I genuinely believed I was buying peace of mind, the kind of place where evenings were calm. Neighbors waved politely, and life finally slowed down, but almost immediately I realized I hadn't moved into a community. I had moved into a petty dictatorship run by one man who treated power like oxygen, and his name was Todd, the HOA president. A man who wasn't loud or aggressive in the obvious way but quietly enjoyed controlling people's lives through rules he enforced selectively, smiling while doing damage, issuing fines, like they were personal insults, $200 if your trash can was out 1 minute past 9 in the morning, $150 if your mailbox paint looked slightly faded, warnings taped to doors like public shame notices, and the most infuriating part was that Todd himself followed none of these rules. His yard was a mess of unpermitted structures. His fence was taller than city ordinances allowed. Random concrete slabs and sheds appeared whenever he wanted. Yet whenever anyone questioned him, he'd laugh softly and say it was cleared, as if his word alone overruled city law. And I tried to stay calm, tried to tell myself it wasn't worth the stress, until the day I crossed an invisible line he didn't think anyone would push back on. When I received a $500 fine because my fence stain was off color, even though the approved stain had been discontinued and I had chosen the closest possible match. Same brand, same finish, same shade. I kept receipts, documented everything, walked to Todd's house with a calm smile, and explained the situation reasonably. And he didn't even look at the proof. He just smirked and said, "Rules are rules," before turning his back and walking inside his own rule, breaking house. And in that moment, I didn't feel explosive anger. I felt something colder and sharper, a focus that settled in my chest because I realized yelling wouldn't scare a man like Todd. But patience, documentation, and time absolutely would. So instead of fighting him directly, I joined him, volunteering for the HOA board under the guise of wanting to help the community, playing the eager, harmless newbie perfectly. And Todd loved it because men like him always underestimate quiet people. And for 2 full years I attended every meeting, took notes, watched how he bullied board members, interrupted dissenters, delayed votes until his allies were present, conveniently lost paperwork from homeowners who challenged him, and wore people down through exhaustion rather than logic. And slowly I understood that Todd wasn't powerful because he was smart. He was powerful because no one had the energy to outlast him, but I did. And the longer I stayed, the more I noticed something deeply wrong with the finances. HOA fees were unusually high, yet the pool was closed for maintenance most of the summer. Landscaping looked abandoned. Sidewalks cracked. Lights flickered, yet Todd constantly bragged about how well he managed the budget. So during a meeting, I casually asked if we could see a detailed financial breakdown, and Todd laughed it off, literally laughed, saying, "Don't worry, I've got it under control." And that laugh told me everything, because it was the laugh of a man who had never been audited. So I filed a formal request for the financial records, something he was legally required to provide, and weeks passed with silence, which pushed me to start talking quietly to neighbors. And once I did, the stories poured out like they'd been waiting for permission. One neighbor swore HOA funds paid for Todd's new patio. Another claimed Todd's kids used the community pool all summer while it was supposedly closed. Several people said they had requested financial transparency for years and were ignored, and it became clear this wasn't incompetence. It was confidence, the kind that comes from believing no one will ever check. So I forced the issue, and eventually Todd handed over the records. Messy, incomplete, mislabeled, full of vague expenses like administrative costs, with tens of thousands unaccounted for. And then I found it, a $15,000 landscaping payment to a company that didn't exist. No license, no address, no registration, just a bank account. And when I referenced the transfers, Todd's personal account appeared again and again. Inflated contractor fees, kickbacks, profit splitting with a shady contractor friend who handled most HOA work, and over $50,000 had quietly disappeared. But I didn't rush. I didn't celebrate. I documented everything meticulously, spreadsheets, screenshots, public records, notarized neighbor statements, because revenge without proof is just noise. And I waited for the annual HOA meeting, usually empty and boring. But not this time, because for weeks I knocked on doors, shared just enough truth to spark anger and curiosity. And on the night of the meeting the room was packed. Todd walked in confident, started his usual speech about sacrifice and leadership. And when I stood up and calmly asked him to explain the discrepancies, he laughed nervously and said it wasn't the time or place, and I replied that it was actually the perfect time, then handed out copies of the report, and the energy in the room shifted instantly. Whispers turned into shouting, faces went pale. Todd's smile collapsed as people read, questioned, realized, and by the end of the night, a vote was called, and Todd was removed on the spot. No screaming, no theatrics, just consequence. And it didn't stop there, because an independent audit confirmed everything: fraud, embezzlement, mismanagement. Police reports were filed. Civil lawsuits followed. Todd was forced to sell his house to pay restitution and legal fees. His contractor friend was banned. County wide, and the man who once fined people for trash cans became a cautionary Google search. Laughed out of rooms when he tried joining another HOA elsewhere. And today, when I walk past his old house, now owned by a kind family, I see an open pool, clean landscaping, transparent budgets, lower fees, and a community rebuilt with safe guards so no one like Todd can ever take control again, and the satisfaction doesn't come from seeing him fail. It comes from knowing that patience, persistence, and paperwork dismantled a bully who thought he was untouchable, proving that the most powerful revenge isn't loud or emotional. It's quiet, legal, methodical, and permanent.